webinar on. It is a pleasure to welcome all of you to this webinar on the global presentation of Azerbaijan's National Ecosystem Assessment. The webinar intends to facilitate an exchange of experiences on key lessons learned, as well as provide an overview of the National Ecosystem Assessment of Azerbaijan. So, I would now give the floor to my colleague, Mel Henley from UNEP WCMC, who would take us through some of the technical aspects and housekeeping aspects for the webinar. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Great to see everyone online. So just some quick housekeeping before we start. So this session will be recorded and the recording will be uploaded to our website. So please let us know if you have any issues with this. Everyone's microphones and cameras will be off. So if you'd like to ask any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And then if you have any technical issues, please do reach out to me. I'll be here to help with anything technical. So we have some interpretation of today's session. We have French and Spanish, so please use the interpretation feature, which again is at the bottom of your screen. You click on it, you can select whichever channel you wish to listen to. And yeah, that's it from me. Over to you, Pratik.
Thank you, Mel. So, Mel, can we have the next slide? Thank you. So, in today's webinar, our agenda covers a host of issues involving the NEA. We will have some very important people who are part of the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment, and they will be talking about main findings, lessons learned, and best practices. We will also be talking about how indigenous and local knowledge was weaved in the Azerbaijan's National Ecosystem Assessment. Towards the end of the webinar, we will have an opportunity to have ask questions regarding the NEA and facilitate an exchange of experiences and how it can inform national ecosystem assessments around the world. In the beginning of this webinar, we will have welcome and opening remarks from senior staff members at UNEP WCMC. So, welcome and opening remarks will be given by Dr. Thiago Ujera, who is the Head of Policy Innovation at UNEP WCMC. Dr. Thiago oversees UNEP WCMC's work in international policy and conventions, nature indicators, gender, human rights, and national ecosystem assessments. Thiago's background includes a PhD in environmental policy from Imperial College. Prior to UNEP WCMC, Thiago led the forest governance program at Chatham House, consulted for the IPCC on poverty and climate change mitigation, and served as senior civil servant at the Brazilian President's Office. Dr. Thiago, welcome to this webinar, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Pratik. Webinar participants, distinguished panelists, speakers, good afternoon, everyone. Great pleasure to have you all here to celebrate this special occasion with us as we prepare ourselves to effectively respond to the challenges we face. As you know, 2023 was the warmest year on record by a large margin. And today, we are facing multiple crises of biodiversity loss, inequality, pollution, and climate change, all of it at the same time. And in response, we need to remove the barriers for policymakers to take urgent action through relevant policies well-informed by scientific, indigenous, and local knowledge. The Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework marked a significant turning point in mending our relationship with nature. Reaching the agreement was the first step, but ultimately, the framework will be judged by the strength of its implementation. I appreciate that governments all over the world are working hard to turn their commitments into concrete outcomes for nature and people. At UNEP WCMC, the World Conservation Monitoring Center, we support countries all over the world through the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative that we refer to as the NEA. This assessment provides key information to policymakers to comply with environmental and development goals, including the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Global Biodiversity Framework. The NEA has supported, so far, 14 countries to undertake ecosystem assessments, which are very inclusive, participatory processes encompassing stakeholders, consultation, participation, and direct input from civil society, academics, researchers, indigenous peoples, and local communities. These assessments, they allow for not only exchanges between such stakeholders, but mostly, fundamentally, the co-creation, co-design, and construction of knowledge on biodiversity, ecosystem services in their relationship with societies. Our goal is to enrich decision-making and enhance the science policy interface on these matters. About today, with this webinar, we celebrate Azerbaijan's ecosystem assessment and work towards future progress, of course, where we can move to the next stage in which the assessment findings and insights collectively drawn from these assessments can enrich policymaking, improve policies, processes, and lead us to effective climate biodiversity action. With this webinar, we present key findings and lessons learned from Azerbaijan's national ecosystem assessment, and I'm confident that the experiences and learnings from this process will inspire the development of ecosystem assessment in other countries, subregions, and regions of the world. I'd like to congratulate and thank the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Azerbaijan, and also the Regional Environmental Center for the Caucasus, for the dedicated effort and commitment to the development of Azerbaijan's NEA. I'm very, very grateful to the International Climate Initiative of the German government for the financial support. And finally, I want to acknowledge the excellent contributions and collaboration with our long-standing partners, UNDP and UNESCO, from the Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service Network. Our long-standing partnership has been instrumental to improve policymaking for the benefit of people and planet. Thank you very much and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Thiago. And yes, indeed, today we are here to celebrate Azerbaijan's National Ecosystem Assessment. So thank you again. And now we would have Ms. Yunita Chavez. She's the Senior Program Officer at UNEP WCMC, and she would be giving an introduction about the webinar. Before I give the floor to her, I would just talk a little bit about her background. So Yunita is the Senior Program Officer at UNEP WCMC. She is the lead for the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative and responsible for the overall management and delivery of the project. Yunita's background includes a master's degree in National Resources Law. Prior to UNEP WCMC, Yunita was participating in the National Ecosystem Assessment of Colombia, as well as coordinating the fast-track assessment for the Amazon region. Yunita, welcome to this webinar, and the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Juanita, you're muted at the moment.
You are muted.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So I was mentioning that Thiago already in his welcoming remarks mentioned key components of national ecosystem assessments, and I guess many of the participants today have been in different webinars or are also familiar with the work that the NEA initiative does and the national ecosystem assessments. But it's worth it to remember that the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative started its work in 2017, supporting the countries to develop their national ecosystem assessments. And national ecosystem assessments are country-driven processes that aim to respond to policy needs through policy questions, bringing information about the status of biodiversity and ecosystem services, as well as of ecosystem assessments. ecosystem services. And this is a very unique process. I know that the countries have also prepared or developed different assessments on biodiversity and ecosystem services, but this kind of process that we are going to be learning about today, in the case of Azerbaijan, brings components that are very important. As mentioned before, the process is a very participatory processes where they bring together different voices, different people, different stakeholder groups. They also intend to be credible in terms that there is a policy will of governments to develop these assessments to support the process and to, of course, use that information that is provided by the assessment in their decision making and processes at national level. They are as well legitimate in terms that they are bringing also the different stakeholder groups and bring different values of biodiversity into these studies. So this is quite important. We will learn more about the challenges, of course, of what it means to have these kind of processes undertaking in the different countries, and we will hear from Azerbaijan as well the challenges, but also all the strength that this national ecosystem has brought into their institutions, into their capacities, and of course the key findings that are very, very interesting, looking into the future, looking at how biodiversity is also bringing different and important elements in terms of climate change, in terms of human rights-based approach, in gender and in other areas of work. So thank you very much for having me in the webinar, and I will give you the floor back, Pratik, to you to continue.
Thank you, Yonita. And now we will have the keynote address for the webinar. Yeah, Mel, we can move to the next slide. So the keynote address for the webinar will be given by Mr. Rashid Alayar-Redev. Mr. Rashid is the Deputy Chief at the Service of Protection of Biodiversity under the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Azerbaijan. He was the project coordinator and focal point for the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment. Mr. Rashid also serves as Azerbaijan's national focal point at the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, also known by its acronym IPES. Mr. Rashid, welcome. It is a pleasure to have you at this webinar, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Good afternoon, dear participants. It's a pleasure to be here and to present Azerbaijani results, Azerbaijani activities during this project. Actually, before the presentation, I would like to say a couple of the words why it is this assessment, why is this report is so important to Azerbaijan, and I think that it is to all countries because it is this platform, this assessment prepares a legal policy for the preparation of the National Biodiversity and Action Plan, so shortly the NBSAPs. Because during the preparation of the national strategy and national goals under the NBSAP, this policy and these key findings, I think, will be important. So I would like to start my presentation, and I will request my colleagues to show my presentation on the screen. Okay, so please, next slide. Next slide, please. Before providing the detailed information and before the legal status, why it is important to the Minister of Ecology and Nature, so I would like to speak about the about structure of the National Biodiversity Platform, because during our project implementation we had two actions, two goals. The first goal was the preparation of the national ecosystem assessment report, and other one was the establishment of the national biodiversity platform. And for legal base and for the future preparation, future political level, national biodiversity platform is very important, in our point of view, because it is a unique structure and a unique body in Azerbaijan that can provide expertise and other relevant information to the whole community of the biodiversity field work. And in Azerbaijan, when we started to establishment this platform, we think a lot about how we will see, because for majority countries in the world, the legal frame of the protection of the biodiversity and legal frame of the environmental actions is different. And for Azerbaijan, during our discussion, we think about how we would like to see this platform. And during the very intensive discussion, we decided to divide activity of the platform for the two steps. The first level, it's the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources. It is a main body in the country, I mean, policy body, which can provide a legal base and authority for environment. And in our case, Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources is the one unique body, and of course, the Service of the Protection of the Biodiversity. It is as a part of this structure, it's a valuable body, how to say, which can manage and which can provide relevant information to the platform. Second second body in this platform, of course, we needed a secretariat, which we will provide, some secretariat work as a paperwork, how to say. And for this, we decided to choose Azerbaijan branch of Red Caucasus, because it is also a unique body in Azerbaijan, which has been established by the relevant degree of the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources and so on. And for these bodies, they have an international status. Next slide, please. In this slide, you see the draft, not the draft, sorry, it is a final structure of the national platform. For the clear structure, our main aim of our discussion was, national platform. It is a body where the policymakers and the scientific people can meet together. And the main aim of this platform, of course, to provide the platform for scientific people and the policymakers to sit and to discuss the biodiversity issue. And for that, we decided the first to establish a coordination board. Of course, for coordination board, for the keeping the neutrality, how to say, we decided to nominate two vice chairs. One vice chair should be from the Academy of Science, somewhere from the academic body, and other one from the policymakers. And in this case, these two independent bodies will keep the neutrality and will provide a clear decision making for the decision which can provide a national platform. Second unit in our platform is advisory board. I was a body, how to say, and the advisory body is a huge amount of the people, where the scientific people, NGOs, civil society, ILK, for example, sit together and they provide information. According to the terms of reference, they can provide some suggestion to the government and so on, so on, so on. And the other one, of course, secretariat. Secretariat will take some notes and will provide the recommendation to the Minister of Ecology about how to say minute of meetings and so on, and provide this information to the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources. It is a draft structure of the National Biodiversity Platform, and in our case, I would like to speak a little bit about our lesson learning. It's about that for each countries, the structure can be different, because the structure of this national platform depends from the legal platform or legalization, or how it is body or other body will work in this country. And for that, each team for each country should decide which is model is more suitable to them. Next slide, please. In this slide, I would provide some technique providing terms of reference for each body. And this, you see, the coordination board is a permanent and temporary working bodies. For example, for each project, I mean, a project which can be relevant to the MBSAPs or to other project, the coordination board can establish a permanent and temporary working groups. So it can be expert working groups and so on, so on. And chairman of the national platform and the vice chairs can provide the recommendation to the government and so on, so on. Second slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. Advisory board, it is actually involved with the civil society institutions, academia, and interested government authorities. When I speak about interesting government authorities, I mean that other agencies and ministers which are working in Azerbaijan, such as Minister of Agriculture or so on, so on. And you see that in our documentation, actually, we put all these structure or guidelines and so on to the one general document. So we call the terms of reference of national platform. And in this platform, we, for example, indicate the number of the people, number of the experts, relevance, and so on, so on. It is a clear document, and the Minister of Ecology and, of course, the Service of the Protection of Biodiversity we use in our work when we making some decision making. And from this slide, you see that the advisory board can be minimum at least 18 persons, but for other cases, it can be more than 18 persons. Next slide, please. In this slide, we provide some key challenges and questions. The first point, it's a face-to-face meeting as a Minister of Ecology, and the second one, to find a way to legal status of MBSAP and structure a national biodiversity platform. Actually, I provided information about these challenges because, you know, as I mentioned, the first steps in front of us, the main question was how we would like to see this platform. So what will be the role of this platform, and of course, a face-to-face meeting with the minister, because for policymakers, when you come to the policymakers, for example, in our case, such as we would like to organize such a platform, the questions, of course, will come to from the ministers and for the policymakers, and each team, I think, should be ready to this question, and you should go to the minister with clear answers. Without the clear answers, it will not be possible to establish national platform. Second, next slide, please. Here, in this slide, I provided information how the platform can be useful on decision-making process. You know, as I mentioned, it is a policy development, which is important, prioritize for conservation, and engagement of stakeholders. These three components, these three targets is very important during the preparation of the National Biodiversity and Strategy and Action Plan. For example, actually in Azerbaijan, we started preparation of national by the MBSAPs, how to say. And the main question in front of us was to update the national targets, how to say, under the MBSAPs. And for example, second one, prioritize conservation. Actually, in our national ecosystem assessment, we already provided in which area we should accelerate our conservation efforts, or for example, how we can engage the stakeholders to the preparation of the national biodiversity plan, or a development as for example, for the project area and so on, so on. Actually, in our understanding, this national ecosystem assessment report of Azerbaijan is very suitable, and Roshan or my Shahnaz Khan will later speak about the key lesson learned or as a point of the provide about the structure. But generally, in our point of view, it is very unique document. Next slide, please. And is last one, it is of course climate change issues and sustainable development. I mean, climate change, you know, in this year, Azerbaijan will host the COP29, and in this case, in this terms, in this COP point of view, our document also will be useful for the COP presidency time in Azerbaijan, because, as I mentioned, key biodiversity challenges or relevance between biodiversity loss and climate change, or SDGs issues will be, of course, will take to the account with the preparation of this event. I think it's my last slide. Next slide. Yes, it's my last slide. If you have a question, so you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rashid. And yeah, thank you for the excellent keynote address. If any of the attendees have questions, I would encourage you can please use the tab below of the Q&A, and you can insert your questions. And when we have the Q&A route towards the end, we will address them. So now we will move to the next session, which will give us an overview of the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment process. And this session will be spoken by Mr. Yashar Karimov. Mr. Yashar Karimov was serving as the project manager for the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment. He is the director of the Regional Environmental Center for the Caucasus based in Azerbaijan. Mr. Yashar, welcome to this webinar. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear webinar participants. It's a pleasure and honor for me to speak during this webinar and during our finalization of our project activities, namely National Ecosystem Assessment. Azerbaijan gained its independence in 1991, and during last more than, let's say, 30 years, we joined to vast number multilateral environmental agreements, including, of course, protection of biodiversity, including combating desertification, climate change, water conventions, etc. Why I am telling this? Because very good and very important part of national ecosystem assessment that we carried out for a few past years, the achievements under this assessment is directly supporting our international obligations and commitments under these conventions. As already mentioned by Rashad, our platform involved a vast number of stakeholders. Of course, all stakeholders like governmental agencies, like non-governmental organizations, academia, universities, and international organizations, they are working somehow on environmental issues, including biodiversity protection, including ecosystem. But what's important in our case, we involve all of them and provide opportunity, provide platform for direct discussion on the topic. That was very important, and we are looking forward to its sustainability, because yes, the project enable us to create this platform and to sustain for several years. But now it's important task for us to continue these activities and for sustainability of our activities, to maintain our cooperation with these stakeholders. Another important point was our workshops and national meetings. As you might be aware, we have tried to organize all our workshops and meetings in the regions, outside of the city, it was additional contribution to our discussion to having a meeting, let's say, outside of the city, where forest directly we can see the forest and forest ecosystem and their contribution. It's how to say, it was obvious to all stakeholders what is the real value of this ecosystem that we can't see in our daily life. Our assessment was mainly focused on 3 ecosystems, and our colleagues will inform you about the details on a technical level about our findings. But in general, it was mountainous ecosystem, including grasslands. It was water ecosystem, and it was forest ecosystem. Of course, in some of case and most of case, they are very interlinked, not separately ecosystems, but very interlinked, interconnected ecosystems. Also, Azerbaijan is not a big country as a territory, but Azerbaijan have very different type of ecosystems. That's why ecosystem assessment enable us, at least for these 3 ecosystem, to show to our decision makers additional value or real value of ecosystems, which up to this day was not considered at all, because we are using as a let's say water or forest as a for general purposes, but we don't see their real value. So it was a great opportunity to show to all stakeholders, but especially to government officials, policy makers, the real values of ecosystem, especially in Azerbaijan on a national level. Apart from this, this activity, this project, the great side of this project was knowledge exchange of knowledge on international level, via webinars or via physical workshops, which was conducted last year or other year. Our team also participated actively in these workshops, and of course inform participants about our findings and benefit from other countries on their activities. Apart from this, I would like to thank, of course, a very important matter and issue that for last, as I mentioned, last few years, our activities was financed by IKI, International Climate Initiatives, financed by government of Germany. So thanks to them, we was able to conduct our activities on a global level with participation of other countries as well. And of course, I would like to also special thanks to UNEP WCMC for their technical support, continuous technical support, I would like to say, to our assessment process. This is briefly from my side regarding our national ecosystem assessment. And again, as Rashad already mentioned, defining ecosystem in one hand will serve policymakers for their understanding about the real value of ecosystem. In other hand, we will use finding of our national ecosystem for other activities under our commitments and obligations under multilateral environmental agreements. For example, we are trying now to update our national biodiversity strategy and action plan, and these findings will contribute directly to these activities. And again, we will need to consider to maintain this cooperation even on global level or even in our national level, to let these activities be sustainable. At least we can meet via online or physical workshops for exchange of knowledge and sharing of experience. I see in chat that there is a question, and it was my last point that I would like to cover. So thank you once again for organization this webinar, and thanks for overall support during last few years. And with your permission, let's address questions. Thanks you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yashar. Yeah, at the moment, my colleague Mel has just mentioned in the chat that if any of the attendees have any questions or comments right now, then they can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We will have a 10-minute session towards the end for a Q&A. So we will have a Q&A round in that session. Now we will move on to the next session, which is an opportunity for knowledge sharing and reflections. So this session will be given by Dr. Rafshan Abbasov. Dr. Rafshan works at the Khazar University in Azerbaijan. In the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment, he was the coordinating lead author on freshwater ecosystems and indigenous and local knowledge of mountain ecosystems. This session will cover some of the main findings, lessons learned, and best practices from the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment. Dr. Rafshan, welcome, and the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for organizing this event, which is very important, and it's really big pleasure for me to talk about main findings, lessons learned, and best practices. As I noted yesterday also, it's a really big honor to be an author in National Ecosystem Assessment, and we are really proud of that. We were able to deliver such a nice deliverable to our government and to our society, to our academia, and many things, many, let's say, irreversible transformative changes. The ecosystem values now are better, much better known to our society and to our decision makers and policy makers. So next slide, please. If possible, you would change my next slide and about that. So this aims to form an essential knowledge ground for the management, use, and protection of biodiversity and ecosystem services. That's very important at national and subnational level. We were able to cover 3-4 major ecosystems in Azerbaijan, and to find to assess ecosystem services using IPES approach, nature contribution to people, and we really hope that these results will help our policymakers to improve their existing ecosystem management policies. And we are in correct path right now, because we already started to implement our main findings in the strategic plans of the government of Azerbaijan, such as updating global biodiversity targets, developing global biodiversity targets for Azerbaijan, and mainstreaming near findings into the policy documents of Azerbaijan, such as the strategic development of strategic development of social economic development of Azerbaijan. And about MVP, National Biodiversity Platform, already broad range of information was given by Rashad Al-Laferdiev. I want to say just that different types of stakeholders, including government officials, different officials from Ministry of Agriculture and from Ministry of Finance, from Ministry of Economy, and Agency of Water, and also from the National Academy of Sciences, and many NGO representatives are being involved in National Biodiversity Platform. And they were really good helpers of us to stay on most important ecosystems that were assessed through this project. And please, next slide. And of course, firstly, we have with the help of biodiversity platform, we were able to identify main policy questions. For example, it was very, very important to know that how assessed ecosystems contribute to the life of people and economy in the country. So we are talking about freshwater ecosystems, mountain ecosystems, and especially pastures, forest ecosystems, and also finding some ground for assessing indigenous and local knowledge of mountain river. What are the main drivers of transformative changes? Okay, we were able to collect big data and make data analysis for the last about 100 years. And we're able to reveal main transformative changes in our ecosystems. What happens, what drivers exist that negatively impact the quality of ecosystem services, how ecosystem services are being changed, and how they were important, let's say 50 years ago, and where we lose human nature connections gradually. It was very important to know about that, because it would be a very, very good signal, very, very good message for our policymakers to update their strategic plans for the next, let's say, 50 years for long-term and short-term goals. And also, for the first time, we have identified importance of indigenous and local knowledge and their importance and how they may contribute to the nature-based management of ecosystems. We revealed that mountain communities of Azerbaijan really have broad range of knowledge that's related to sustainable use of resources, mostly pastures, land, freshwater ecosystems. That's why we were able to assess both use and non-use values of our ecosystems. Of course, for example, our water managers like to consider our freshwater ecosystems as a source of life, saying that these ecosystems are very important sources of irrigation and drinking water. But when we emphasize that freshwater ecosystems are a source of life, we mean also non-use values that are related to human nature relationships. It's our freshwater ecosystems not only about using them for some purpose, it's also about not using them for non-use purposes. Let's say because we have great tangible and non-tangible values of these ecosystems. And also how identified knowledge and investment gaps should be filled. It was also the very important policy questions. These policy questions mostly came from our National Biodiversity Platform representatives. That, of course, guys, you are making assessment of these freshwater ecosystems. We have gaps, and how you will use these findings, and it formulated for us policy question number 5, how NEA findings and recommendations should be integrated into the national policy. And we found that Azerbaijan government has different types of strategic roadmaps, strategic plans on socio-economic development, and we started to think about that how these findings can be mainstreamed into the development policies, into the national policies, if needed, how legislative legal ground can be updated using these findings. Next slide, please. And as I said, these ecosystems, what type of ecosystems can be taken into account, what type of ecosystems can be assessed, it was subject of big discussions for a quite long time. And because this is freshwater ecosystems, forest ecosystems, some pastures and ILK and mountain ecosystems are not the only ecosystems we have. Azerbaijan is the country with big, let's say, great biodiversity, and here many ecosystems. For example, sea ecosystems, wetland ecosystems that could be separately considered exist. We have different types of ecosystems, but given our capacity, given our opportunities, we have selected this 4 main direction with suggestion of national biodiversity platform. Next slide, please. And here are the pictures from different, up to 4 big meetings have been conducted in different regions of Azerbaijan. We have visited, we are in different types of field trips. We have meetings in different places. We have group discussions. We have direct, let's say, information for our representatives. And as a result of this work, we were able to identify main directions where we may go. And also from time to time, we have updated our, let's say, assessed knowledge. We have updated our work using the information that come from National Biodiversity Platform members. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to, here we see the key findings from assessment report. Of course, we have used mostly IPES framework for our assessment. IPES framework suggests nature contribution to people, how nature contribute to life of people with food, medicinal plants, drinking water, irrigation, clean air, non-use values, recreational resources, and climatic resources, and how these resources provide good quality of life, how these resources provide anthropogenic assets, financial resources, where may come from to support nature and to prevent reduction of this type of contributions. Also, we need for better institutions and government, academia and research, civil society institutions, municipalities, legislation ground and business representatives that would support nature's contribution to people with better finance and management mechanisms. Of course, through this framework, we were able to identify direct drivers, which can be split into 2 big parts: natural hazards, climate changes, natural change of ecosystems, and of course, anthropogenic drivers, such as environmental pollution, waste of natural resources, use of ecosystems, and of course, anthropogenic drivers such as legislation and information, institutional situation, military and political conflicts also may change quality of ecosystem services. So going through that, we're able to assess these values like ecosystem values, of environmental values, use values, and non-use values. We identified all these values in our ecosystem, which will reflect in our technical report and, of course, in the summary for policymakers. We have identified medicinal and edible plants, forage for people that can serve as a good source of life, drinking and irrigation water sources, fishing and hunting of water animals, tourism and recreation opportunities, protection of fish and animals. Also, we have identified even altruistic values that the people can ready to contribute to the protection of environment with their time and even the money. Because through that assessment, in order to assess these values, existence values, altruistic values, aesthetic values, we have conducted a survey that would reveal this type of values and how people, how the society consider these values in terms of their time and money to protect. And we revealed that Azerbaijani society is really ready for protection of, for preventing ongoing processes such as climate change, such as environmental pollution, and improving the quality of ecosystem services. With a PES approach, of course, we're able also to use most traditional approach, such as environmental services approach. And we have a separate chapter, separate paragraph in our assessment that that compare NCP and ecosystem services platform and reveal that they have the same goals, although despite the things that there are some differences in approaches, but they have the same goals to assess ecosystem services. Next slide, please. And now I will talk about the main findings that Azerbaijan is really biologically diverse country. It hosts, it serves as a wintering ground of highly valuable. Let's go to the previous slide. Okay, please. Okay, lakes and wetlands are important in terms of nature contribution to people, in terms of ecosystem services, and they really serve as a good ground for wintering birds. And Azerbaijan also serves as a center of origin of several globally important food crops. Also, Azerbaijan watercourses, small rivers that directly flow to the Caspian Sea, are the preferred spawning grounds for valuable sturgeon fish, which account nearly 90% of world's sturgeon populations. Of course, we have also revealed that due to global changes, due to climate change, due to ongoing processes, our rivers and small streams and our ecosystems can be under some pressure due to intensive water withdrawals for agriculture, due to land use obstacles in several areas, overgrazing are the main challenges, urban growth, also the main challenge that reduce quality of ecosystem services and quality of ecosystems. Next slide, please. Also, we think that land degradation is one of the most important drivers that can be controlled in the future. And that's why we are talking about a strategic roadmap on social economic developments. Different types of strategic roadmap will be updated using this type of findings. Local and also the transboundary pollution for Azerbaijan is a very important problem, because Azerbaijan's downstream countries have more than 70% of total water resources come from upstream countries. That reduce quality of our wetlands, quality of oxbow lakes, and quality of course, rivers. In Azerbaijan also reduce the water access in Azerbaijan. Next slide, please. And after finding all type of drivers, went to the recommendations. Recommendations include broad range of directions that nature-based solutions that come from our mountain communities should be and mainstreamed into the policies, strategies, and development programs of government institutions. And this, let's say, prevention of ongoing processes already reflected some documents, and after this assessment will be reflected much more. And stakeholder engagement strategy involving different stakeholders, very important. Using their knowledge, having their interests would be very important to prevent ongoing processes and improve quality of ecosystem services. Azerbaijan has already provided its contribution to INDC, let's say, national determined contribution to UNFCCC. It has no adaptation component, and it's already the subject of discussions, and in the near future, this document will be updated with adaptation component using our findings. Of course, conducting capacity building projects and trainings for government representatives on ecosystem basis are very, very important. And I'm very pleased to say that some international organizations that are based in Azerbaijan started already to use this. For example, UNDP Azerbaijan started to conduct trainings for our decision makers on climate change and on ecosystem-based solutions. And FAO Azerbaijan and different international organizations also use our findings to see the gaps and let's say change their directions in order to update their activities and make their activities more effective. Next slide, please.
Dr. Afshan, sorry to interrupt you, but I would kindly ask if we can move quickly. We just have 5 minutes more left for this session.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And some also recommendation encouraging sustainable integrated planning and management of landscapes, encouraging use of sustainable farming methods and such as agroecology, and utilizing genetic resources sustainably in agriculture, and promoting application of biodiversity-friendly management techniques, promoting natural or semi-natural habitat areas inside and outside of intensively managed production systems. Next slide, please. And key messages also reflect let's say, findings that we need to make several. Also, one of the key messages include that supporting community-based participatory ecosystem management schemes are very important, and we need to make separate institutions that specialized on hierarchy knowledge in order to protect indigenous and local knowledge, and of course encouraging sustainable integrated planning and management of our ecosystems. Next slide, please. Of course, now I'm coming gradual about the dissemination. SBM is available online. Final workshop is going to be organized, and both NEA technical report and SBM is publicly available, and these documents are in the process of distributing to our government organizations and the society. Anyone who wants may use this document. And NEA findings start to get mainstreamed and used in government policies and strategies and plans. Next slide, please. And this is the target audience of our NEA, that government institutions, as I already say, women organizations, local representatives, and local communities and municipalities that may reach and use this assessment. Next slide, please. Okay, now just I want to give some information that I've been involved recaucus again to the MSAP update process and developing biodiversity targets, national biodiversity targets for Azerbaijan, and we have a very nice team. We already started to use our findings to update our targets and to develop new targets using NEA findings. Next slide, please. And for example, I show here the global biodiversity targets, project GBF, and national biodiversity targets. It's one of the pages. We already started to use NEA findings here for 2024 and 2030. Next slide, please. Also, action plan include our objectives, that how NEA will be used by different organizations in the process. Next slide, please. And thank you all. At the end, I want to thank UNEP WCMC for their nice contribution, for their supportive work. I also thank very much REC Azerbaijan team. They were always with, I thank technical staff, They were always with us, Yaşar Muallim, Ilahe Hanım, Nazrin Hanım, and many, many others. I thank also Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources and Rashad Allahverdiyev for their help and actually being with us everywhere and every time.
Thank you, Dr. Rafshan, for such a thorough and a comprehensive presentation. That was really insightful for all of us here. Moving on to the final session of today's webinar, which is about weaving indigenous and local knowledge in the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment. And this session will be given by Dr. Shehnaz Amanova. Dr. Shehnaz was one of the authors in the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment. She supported Dr. Rafshan on freshwater ecosystems and indigenous and local knowledge of mountain ecosystems. She works at the Research Institute of Crop Husbandry in Azerbaijan. Dr. Shehnaz, welcome to this webinar. Thank you so much for your time, and the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for everything, especially for giving me opportunities to participate on this webinar. I'm going to give some information about indigenous and local knowledge in the Azerbaijan National Ecosystem Assessment. Especially, I want to begin with the natural condition of Azerbaijan Republic, special mountain areas. Please, the next slide. Please, next. Please, next slide. Okay. Azerbaijan. There are three main mountain systems in Azerbaijan Republic: Greater Caucasus, Lesser Caucasus, and of course Talush Mountains. And mountain areas are the mountains areas of Azerbaijan differ from other areas by their biological diversity. And this is Greater Caucasus, and it includes especially two vital mountain range, Yan range, and the other one is the main Caucasus range. Please, next slide. Okay, and I can say that the Lesser Caucasus Mountain stretch from the north to the south in the western part of Azerbaijan. Please, next slide. This is a Lesser Caucasus mountain system in Azerbaijan, and as I said, that it's located in the western part of Azerbaijan Republic with some vital range. Please, the next one. And I'm going to give some information: human-nature relationships in mountain areas. The lifestyle of the mountain people is closely connected with the environment, and the contact of the local population with the environment is reflected in the emergence of the most diverse traditions, special lifestyles, and of course different views. Please, next slide. Okay, many natural resources are not only valuable for their use, but also contain moral values for the mountain population. For example, the value of mountain pastures is not limited to grazing animals and preparing food for the winter, but also has cultural significance. And also we can say it about springs too. Springs in the mountain areas are not only a source of water, but also contain very important cultural, social, and spiritual values. Especially this intangible cultural heritage is heritage that coexists with nature. For example, there are many songs, legends, and even some rituals related to Isa Spring. Isa Spring, it it's located near the city of Shusha. And currently, as a result of climate change, the water of spring has decreased. And if this spring becomes completely dry, then all the intangible cultural heritage associated with this spring will gradually disappear. And the natural environment of mountain areas of Azerbaijan is primarily a source of fresh air, water, food, and healthy living for the population. And the next one, please. Okay. The forests of our republic are habitat for wild animals. They also prevent frequent floods in the city, and especially I want to talk about this table. This table shows the natural values that support the traditional way of life in the mountain people, and these values play a very important role in the lives of people living in mountain areas and are very important for the survival of today's lifestyle. And I want to mention that, on the other hand, the area is very important in terms of health, healing, and recreation. Thus, spending time in this area during summer months has a positive effect on human health, helps to quickly eliminate depressed elements of urban life. By the way, I want to give some information, a bit of information about urban landscapes. Now, I have been investigating urban landscapes, planning and development of urban landscapes since 2020. I want to emphasize that the urban landscapes have vital effect on biodiversity, because these areas causes a decreasing of biodiversity. Especially, I want to emphasize that I investigate the cities of Kur-Araz Plain, and we know that Kur-Araz Plain are our vital winter pasture, and expanding of urban landscapes causes decreasing of winter pastures, and not just winter pasture. I would like to emphasize that arable lands, decreasing of arable lands, and of course biodiversity. The population that live inhabited in the cities that are located on the banks of Kur and Araz River provide their life because of Kur and Araz River. But when I investigated my area, when I researched my area, my cities, I realized that some oxbow lakes of Araz River dried up completely, and these areas have been replaced by construction area, and of course, it's a big threat for biodiversity and water ecosystems. And of course, it's a big threat for arable lands because these people provide their life with food, their food, because of this fish. But this process, of course, makes some threats for our ecosystems. And then it should be noted that the area is also very important from a glacial point of view. Landforms, watersheds, and geological process, forest fragments, climatic features are also educational importance. For example, in addition to being fed by glacial waters, the Shahnabad River is located in an area where past glaciers have spread, and the study of the river basin would help to study past climatic history of the mountains. And ecosystems have very important functions that support tourism and recreation, and grasslands and of course forests are the preferred touristic attractions for local and international tourists. Hiking, hunting, gathering, and other touristic activities can can be considered as the high economic values. And if the productivity of summer pastures decrease as a result of climate change or overgrazing, then the values based on existence of those pastures gradually lose their significance. Next, please.
Dr. Shahnaz, sorry to interrupt you, but I would kindly ask if you can wrap up in 3 minutes now, and so that we have sufficient time for the Q&A session. I'm sorry, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Many essential goods can be derived from ecosystems, and ecosystems are the only source of natural resources, which are very important to human well-being and survival. And ecosystems are all ecosystems contributions that humans receive from the environment. And next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, no, please, the previous slide. Okay, summer pastures are called yaylak and winter pastures are called qishlaks in Azerbaijan, and the culture of the mountain village is based on the use of yaylaks and qishlaks. And summer pastures in yaylaks are mainly used for grazing sheep and cows, as well as for crop collection and in part for high making and hunting. And historically, these pastures were also used for agriculture and beekeeping, and meat, dairy products, woolen clothes, carpets, and palas. It's in Azerbaijan. It is also carpet, are the main products made in mountain villages. And the meat collected during the summer is used to make winter food and cheese for sale. And church. What is church? It's a process that people leave winter pastures and go to the summer pasture. And during the church process, the speed of migration is closely related to climatic conditions, of course. And in the meeting the needs of food and clothing, the mountain communities can easily provide itself with all the essential products. Meat, milk, cheese, butter, and other dairy products are obtained from meat, of course. And the next slide, please. This diagram shows the relationship of the mountain population with nature to meet their needs. As can be seen from this diagram, all the needs of the community in mountain lifestyle are met only through local production and direct contact with nature. And please, next slide. Winter pastures are plains where domestic animals are kept during the winter. And please, the next slide. Formation of knowledge and skills. The interaction between nature and man, in addition to manifesting itself in culture, also leads to emergence of specific knowledge, and this knowledge often belongs to a local community. The next one, please. This is such knowledge are used of land, the processing of natural minerals in its own way, and the preparation of food and the use of wild plants as mean of treatment. The next one, please. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Shahnaz, for the excellent presentation. And I'm sorry for the paucity of time, but yeah, I think that was very indeed insightful for all of us. So I will now quickly move to the Q&A session. And we do have some questions, and some questions have already been answered by our panelists. So I will quickly start with the first question here. And the first question is, given the complexity of terrain and hydrology of Azerbaijan, how much work has been done on groundwater fauna, a vital element in the breakdown of organic matter in fresh waters, especially based on your findings that there are significant changes in flows.
Okay, please.
Yes, Dr. Rafshan.
Thank you very much. Because in the selection of ecosystem process, we consider it is you mostly have like the freshwater ecosystems. Of course, flows getting reduced, and now especially groundwater, the groundwater tables is going down due to ongoing climate changes and excessive water withdrawals. And now it is included into the government policies, especially which will concern the groundwater extractions and heavily regulated. And these regulations are a bit tightened.
Thank you, Dr. Rafshan, for the answer. I will now move to the next question, and that is from one of our attendees, Fabiana Spinelli. And she's asking, Mr. Rashad mentioned the application of the assessment findings to policymaking in the fields of biodiversity conservation, climate change, and sustainable development. I wonder if he or another member of the Azerbaijan NEA could provide more concrete examples on how the findings have been integrated into these policies, or how they plan to do this in the future.
Thank you very much for this question. Actually, I would like to give more information about that. As I mentioned, now Azerbaijan team and we started preparation of the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan for 2025, 2030 years. And of course, the main our task is to clarification and providing the clear national biodiversity targets. And during the, of course, preparation of this target, we will definitely come to our national ecosystem assessment report, and we will use key findings which we find during our preparation, and we will integrate to our MSAPs. It is first part, and also we are going to preparation of our adaptation plan on climate change. And of course, we will provide this information to our relevant experts. Of course, we will use this key find during the adaptation plan preparation under the climate change to Azerbaijan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rashad. I'll move to a question from an anonymous attendee, and that I believe has already been answered by Mr. Yashar. However, I think for the benefit of all the attendees who may not have seen your answer, I think we can go over the question and answer again, if that's okay. So the question is, has updating or continuing the NEA process been integrated into staff roles? Example, whether there have been dedicated analysts for the NEA project now. So, Mr. Yashar, I believe you've already answered this question, but if you could also share for everybody's benefit, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. As I mentioned, the main challenge in all similar projects is a sustainability, because we are having some support from donors or technical support, and we are trying to do something. Again, it refers to all projects, including national ecosystem assessment. But how to sustain, how to maintain. For this purpose, in this case, what we can do, and it's additional our privilege, let's say, because Regional Environmental Center having several different projects, including for biodiversity protection, at the very least, we are maintaining our cooperation with thematic experts by involving them to other similar but different related activities. It means that we are trying to sustain maintain at the very least, again, the platform itself. This will, I think, enable us in the future to consider update of this national ecosystem assessment, because the very important thing is to maintain cooperation with this person. Of course, they are also, let's say, for other similar projects, we will have a workshops. In some part of this workshop, we can refer to this assessment, we can discuss the findings. Of course, we can benefit from the findings of this assessment as well. This is our approach, for at least for now, and we are looking forward, of course, to having additional support for continuity of this project, if it will be possible.
Thank you, Mr. Yashar. So now we have one more question from an anonymous attendee, and it says, what were the biggest challenges you faced in completing the National Ecosystem Assessment? What worked very well and what didn't, if any? So, I mean, I think...
Can I start to answer, and maybe Roshan and Yashar also can join me. Of course, the main challenge, difficulties to us, of course, was the capacity building issues, because in Azerbaijan, it is first such a document which you integrate as a policy making components with the scientific issues and etc. etc. It was the first point. I mean, first difficulties to us was as a capacity issues. Of course, me and Roshan, we involved in the EPS process, and we had such capacities, but our experts, unfortunately, well, it was some difficulty. And when we started the process, the first things which we did, we started some capacity trainings to our experts. So what is the EPS, what ecosystem services, what is the information, and so on. So it is first difficulties. Second one, of course, my colleagues also can approve. It is the information gaps. Information gaps. It was a very sensitive issues to us, because so it was information gaps, and of course difficulties about the same. For example, in this literature we have this number, in other literature we have other number, and so on. So some difficult, some misunderstanding of information was that, and that's why we also decided to use with some references, resources numbers, and so on, so on. And of course, some point was old information resources, because actually, as you know, when Azerbaijan gained independence, and there was some difficult time to all country. I mean, it was some war and etc. Got some economical situation, and that time we didn't have any academical resources, research work. So that's why information gaps. I mean, age of information was also as a difficulties to it. But if my colleagues would like to add something, so please.
Yes, I can continue. Rashad Malim already mentioned challenges. I would say for me as an author, of course, data collection was a biggest challenge, and because also we are a little bit in shortage of published works previously in shortage. That's why, in order to solve this issue, we put two major activities. One was survey, direct survey collection, and travels to mountain communities. And the findings of National Ecosystem Assessment is reflected regarding the human-nature relationships has not been published so far until NEA itself. So it's a bit different. I know that the other assessment, I know the whole EPS process very well, that they work based on cameral activities. But in case of Azerbaijan, we needed to go to have some field visits and taking more raw information from the field. So it was solved. And of course, another issue was, of course, the one of the big discussions I remember was in the beginning, related to what type of ecosystems can be taken into account. We have discussed this a lot of, because NGO, academia, many people give us their suggestions. Maybe take the other ecosystems. What ecosystems are the most important for Azerbaijan? For example, some of these works can be included in the future. I don't think that the initial assessments that cover these ecosystems have already been finished. Additional ecosystems, for example, coastal ecosystems, some, let's say, wetland ecosystems separately should be included into the future activities. Yeah, of course, this kind of difficulties we had, but the team was really good, and we supported each other, and it went very easy with my, let's say, teammates and organizations, backstopping, supports. All these technical questions were solved. That's perfectly. We never had difficulties on that.
Thank you, Dr. Afshan. Thank you so much. And that brings us towards the end of the Q&A session. I'm sorry we may not be able to address any more questions, but I will drop in my email ID in the chat, and please do send us your questions if you have any more, and we will have them answered for you. And I just wanted to address one comment which was there. We will also send out an evaluation survey after the webinars. So yeah, feedback is very welcome. Now, I would now give the floor to Ms. Yunita for giving us the closing remarks for the webinar. Yunita, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank all of you for your participation today, and a special thank you for our colleagues of Azerbaijan for sharing with us about their national ecosystem assessment and about the process. I think this was very interesting, and I hope that it has been useful for many of the participants today as well. In terms of conclusions, I think that it has been very interesting to hear that ecosystem assessment not only brought this amazing technical report of information about the status of biodiversity and ecosystem services in Azerbaijan, with these very key messages and findings, and of course this summary for policymakers, which intends to bring all this information available for policymakers, but also it was very interesting to hear how the National Ecosystem Assessment brought also the establishment of this National Biodiversity Platform to connect precisely these expert communities on biodiversity and ecosystem services, and where even this interface of science, policy, and society was seen as a practical exercise in Azerbaijan, how the government was having these discussions hand by hand with NGOs, with academia, and with other stakeholders. So that's very rich and lightly enlightening to hear how this process has also support strengthening these institutions at national level. Also, how the NEA, of course, and its findings and information will contribute to these national processes in terms of, for example, the review of the MBSAP, but also will help the country to keep complying with international obligations of environment, climate change, and other multilateral agreements. That's also very important. And also to understand and recognize the importance of this exercise in terms of how it visualizes other values of biodiversity, bringing also social values of the use of natural resources for the well-being of people. And in this case, it has been very interesting that for the first time the country was addressing this assessment on local knowledge on a precise and very important ecosystem as mountains. It has been also very nice to hear that one of the contributions that this process has raised for Azerbaijan has been to be part of this network that is the NEA initiative, to be able to peer-to-peer with others that are developing their assessments processes, also to exchange your experience and knowledge. And as the team is also recognizing, being part of this network doesn't finish with the finalization of the ecosystem assessment, but of course, it continues bringing different expertises and dialogues on this area. Before maybe closing, I would like to also encourage everyone to join the Subglobal Assessment Network so you can keep up to date on our upcoming events. You can find the link in the chat, and also to invite you to visit our website to read more about the NEA initiative, to have a look to different assessments reports that are also available in the website, other documents that are relevant for stakeholder engagement, communication, etc. So that's great. We will have our next webinar quite soon, and you will have also the information in your screen, where we are going to launch the Bosnia and Herzegovina's National Ecosystem Assessment as well. So you are all invited. Thank you very much for your time. This has been an amazing webinar. Thank you very much for all the work of the Azerbaijan team and the kindness to make us part of that process, but also sharing all that knowledge with us. All the best with the implementation of the assessment findings, and see you very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the panelists and attendees, for making time to attending this webinar. Thank you, everybody, and we look forward to your participation in the next webinar, which will be on the global presentation of Bosnia and Herzegovina National Ecosystem Assessment. It will take place on 24th April, Wednesday, from 11:30 to 1 p.m. British Summer Time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Who was doing the slides? Who were running the slides? Oh gosh.